Hello everyone, welcome to the DigiDev channel. In this video we're going to go through JavaScript DOM, and if you want to support me to create more videos like this, please subscribe to the channel and like this video. What JavaScript DOM basically is, let's say we want to change the value of this li here. So this li contains a value of home. If you want to change this value through our JavaScript code, we're going to use JavaScript DOM. So JavaScript DOM is basically our whole HTML file, and we can access all of the elements and parameters of our HTML document. And let's just do that. Let's just change the value of this element. So the way that we can access that element is either by getting all the LIs or by finding it by a class, or finding it by the ID. So right now I'm gonna find it with ID first. We're gonna find by class and by tag name. So but first let's just try to find this element by the ID. For that we're gonna use document, which I told you, the whole HTML file, and we have a parameter called getElementById. So let's just click it and open up two parentheses, and inside that parentheses we're just gonna write our ID here. So the ID is home. The ID, we write it inside two quotations, and this is gonna give us back a result. So when we run this command and this command got executed, it will return us some value, and that value is that li, is that ID that he found. So we want to store that value inside a variable. Let's create a variable. I will call it home, and let's make it equal to this command. So when we make it equal to this command, we actually are making it equal to the result that this command is giving us back. So the result is that element that he found. So now we can say home. Let's just, before that, let's just console.log home. So let's see what it is giving us back, what it is returning. Let's save it, and if I open up my console and refresh the page, here you can see we have an li. So it found the element. We have an li with the value of home. So now we want to change the value. For changing the value, here we have another command. Well, let's just console it first so you can see what it does. It's a parameter inside our home. So we say home dot, so we can access the parameters. There's a command called inner text. Let's just set inner text, and let's save it and refresh the page. So here you can see it is logging inside the console for us the value or the inner text of our home element. Now we're not gonna just console.log this element. We're gonna change that element, and we do that by saying home.innerText equal to another piece of text that we want to set. So let's say just I don't have a text in my mind. Let's just say changed, and if I save it and here refresh the page, you can see here it is changed to changed, and here you can see the inner text is being logged again. So that's how we can change the value of a piece of element. Now let me comment this inner text. We have something else called inner HTML as well. Let's save it and see how that works. If I hit refresh, you can see nothing has changed. It's just giving us back the value that the element had. But the difference between inner HTML and inner text is that here you can see inside our li that we have no HTML code, but inside our blog you can see we have an A tag. So this is a HTML text, and we don't have that HTML text inside our li. And because of that, when we say home.inner.html, it's not showing us anything. But for testing that code, let's just change the home to blog that has an A tag. So if I save it and refresh the page, here you can see we have that A tag inside our log. So it is logging the A tag as well. And if I change it back to inner text again, and I save it and hit refresh, you can see it's just giving us back the text and it's not giving us back any HTML code. But inner HTML will give us the other HTML codes inside of that element as well. Alright, so that's it for inner text and inner HTML. Now let's test another thing. Let's just comment out the codes and let's try something else. Let's say let's say btn, and I want to get this button, and I want to get them by their name. So the button has a name, and we have two buttons, and both of them have the same name. And let's say buttons. So I want to get all of my buttons, and I'm going to set it equal to document dot. So here we have a get element by name. So it's get elements by name. Elements. So it's not an element, it's all of the elements by a name. It's just like get element by ID, but it will get all of the elements with the same name. So the name was button, I believe. Okay, yeah, it was button. And if I save it, what this code does, it will return us an array. So in here, we was just getting the element, but in here we get an array, which is contained by all of the elements that it found by the same name. So let's just console.log the buttons. Let's save it and hit refresh. Here you can see it has found two buttons. So if I open it up, here you can see button 0 and button 1. If I open the button 1, you can see all of the things that are stored inside our button and all of the elements. So let's now access the text of button 1. It's so simple. We just say the buttons element 0. We want to access to the value of 0, and let's get the inner text. Let's save it, hit refresh, and here is the text of the first button that it has found. That's about buttons. I will just copy it. Let's comment them and paste it here so we can save sometimes. Now we want to test something else. We want to find them by the tag name. So let's say we have a bunch of li here. I want to get all of the li's inside my document page. Let's call it li's. Okay, so here we have another command, elements by tag name, and here I will just like others give it a tag name. So it will give me all of the tag name that it has stored inside the VS Code, and I want to find all of the li's. So I will give it the li, and in here I will say just log the li's. Okay, let's save it and now refresh, and here are all of the li's that it has found. It's an array, and it has found 4 li, which is home, and it is blog, about, and contact us. So let's comment this as well and paste again. Now we want to learn about query selector. Let's just say I want to find the nav bar here. So I want to find this div with the class of nav bar. Let's just change this to nav. And here I'll say query selector. We have two query selector. One of them is query selector and query selector all. And I will tell you the difference in a second. So let's just test query selector. What is query selector? The query selector is the combination of all of these finding methods that we saw until now. And it is working on a CSS syntax base. So let's just test it out. So we want to get a div. So we want to get a div with a class of navbar. Just like CSS, we have a div with a class of navbar. Let's just log nav. Okay, hit refresh, and it will give us the div with the class of navbar that it found. We can do anything else. We can say we want an ID of home. An ID of home in CSS, IDs are found by hashtag. We say hashtag home, so it will find us the home element with the ID of home. And let's say we want to get all of the p element of our page. So we just say p, just like CSS, and it will find us the p. But there is something. Let's say we want to find all of the LIs. Okay, let's save it. Hit refresh. You can see it's just returning one LI. It's not giving us all of the LI. That's why we use query selector all to get all of the data that we want. Query selector alone will give us the first result that it found. It's not going to continue to search and return all of them for us. So that's the difference between query selector and query selector all. Okay, and if I save it and hit refresh now, you can see it will give us the array of 4 LIs. Okay, that's about query selector. And now let me comment that out. Okay, not like that. Okay. Now let's go to finding something by class name. So we can find it by query selector, but let's find it by the class name alone as well. So we say I'll just call it cn and say document dot get element by class name, and it's elements. So we have a special class name called navbar sub, and we have a bunch of navbar sub which is attached to all of our LIs again. Let's just save it. Before that, let's console.log cn. So if I save it and hit refresh, you can see again I'm getting an array of 4 LIs. So I just wanted to cover this as well. Now let's go to other stuff like creating an element, adding some attributes and stuff like that. So before anything, we want to get something. So let's get the home nav sub at the top. So I'm going to do it with query selector. We say let. We can actually use const because we're not going to reassign it. Use const, and I'm going to call it home. Going to be equal to document dot query selector is just one element, so I'm not going to use query selector all, and inside of it it's an li with the class of navbar sub, and right now it's just gonna give me home, but I'm not actually specifying anything that this is the home class, because it's gonna give me the first li that it found, and the first li that it found is the home li, and this code will work. But the better way actually is to using an ID, so it's more accurate, and if someone else read our code, will know things better as well. So let's just use the ID of home. So now we have our home element, and let's use set attribute first. Okay, let's go with set attributes. What set attributes do? It will get two pieces of text, which the first one gonna be the attribute name that it wanna get. Let's say we're gonna give it a style attribute, and the second one is the value of that attribute that we're gonna set to this element. For example, we're gonna get the width to 100 pixel, let's say. If I save it and let's console.log home as well. If I save it and hit refresh, here we can see we have this li element of home, and here you can see we have a style added. It's a style attribute with the width of 100 pixel. So that's how attributes work. We've added an attribute just like that. And now let's toggle some classes. Let's say I want to get this active class, remove this active class from the home, and add it to the blog. How can we do that? So we have a home that we can access to. So we can access to this home element, which is this li. And for accessing the classes, the best way is by using Classlist. So there is a class list which contains of all of our classes, and we have some parameters like add, remove, and replace. These are the three that we're going to use most. We have toggle as well, but I personally use these three the most. So with add, obviously we can add something, and with remove, we can remove a class. Right now we want to remove a class. The class that we want to remove is active. Alright? If I save it and refresh, here you can see the active class has been removed. Now I want to add it to the blog. How can I add it to the blog? Well, first I'm gonna find the blog, right? So I can access to the class list. You say const blog document.query selector. Let's select it with the ID of blog, and here let's say blog dot classlist dot add, and I want to add active. All right, and here just below this console.log, I want to log blog as well. Let's save it and hit refresh. Here you can see the active class from the first li, which is home, has been removed and has been added to the blog. So we have replace as well. Let's test replace so you can see how it works as well. So with replace, classlist dot replace will get two class. The first class gonna be the class that we're gonna remove, which let's say we want to remove navbar sub, and the second text, which will be the class that we want to replace it with. So we want to replace it with, let's say, navbar main sub. Let's hit refresh, and if I refresh the page, here you can see the navbar sub has been changed to navbar main sub. Okay, now the last thing that remains is creating an element. Let me just comment all of these out, and let's say we have a button that each time that we're clicking on it, I want to add an li to this UL. Right now we haven't learned about events. We're gonna learn about events in future videos. So right now I'm not gonna do this this thing that I just told you. Instead, what I want to do is just add one li remotely. So first thing we're gonna do is find our li. So we can use get element by tag name, but I'm gonna use query selector because I just love using query selector. So I say const, let's just say ul gonna be equal to document.querySelector, and inside of it I have a ul. Since I just have one ul inside my page, I don't need to specify any ID or anything for it. So let's just say query selector ul, and for our ul we want to add an element to it. So to adding an element, first we need to create an element. To creating an element, we use document.createElement. Isn't that easy? So we want to create an element. The element that we want to create is an li. Okay. Now this piece of code will return us a value, and we're gonna store it in our element. Let's call it our element. Okay. What it will give us back is basically an li like this. What it will do, it will give us an open and close tag of li. This is basically all of the things that this document.createElement gonna do. But the good thing about it is that now we can access all of the parameters of that element, and we're not even showing it right now. Alright, now we can use setAttribute for anything that we want to do. We have a class, we know what the class names are, we have an ID, so we can use toSetAttribute for that and just finish it. But what I'm gonna do is by going through Classlist and add it like this. So I say Classlist.add. I want to add a class list called navbar sub. We can add the ID by setAttribute, but since there is an ID here that we can set here, we don't need to use setAttribute, but we can use setAttribute as well. So I will set the ID to, let's say, shop, and it's going to be inside quotations as well. Now let's set the text for it. Our element dot inner text, let's set it equal to shop as well. And now our element is ready, but we are not showing it in the UL. We need to add this element that we have created to the UL. In order to add it, we just say UL dot append, and we append this element that we have created. As easy as that. And let's just console.log the UL. Let's save it and refresh. Here you can see the shop, and if I open up the UL, here is the shop with the class of navbar sub, with the ID of shop, and with the text of shop. Alright everyone, that's it for this video. Make sure to like and subscribe. Thank you. Bye bye.